Welcome to The Long View, a podcast for the builders and doers. And my guest today is definitely someone I would consider a builder and a doer. My name is Jesse Marble. I'm the host. My guest today is Ron Schneidermann. Ron was the CEO, built a startup called AllTrails, largely considered one of the top outdoor adventure platforms. We use it as a family. Ron took over when they were 6 people and about $500,000 in ARR. Took it to over 100 million users and an exit, which he'll talk about. Before that, built a company called Liftopia, wrote the business plan using some books he bought at Barnes & Noble. He'll share that story. But this interview has a lot of the unglamorous stuff. Self-funding, brutal prioritization, the hard questions to ask yourself as the CEO of a company. And he's got some hot takes, topics like co-founders, when to not raise money, why culture sometimes in many startups is your only real competitive moat. And then right now in a world of AI, he's building an AI startup, but in a world of AI, when things become easier and easier to build from a technology standpoint, why taste and discernment often become the last defensible thing that we have as leaders. So he's now the CEO of a company called Acley. It's an AI-powered standardized prep platform. And he's using a lot of the same philosophies that he used to build AllTrails at Acley. Ron, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So excited to talk about your journey, everything that's happened. You're now at Acley. Excited to talk about that at some point. But let's kind of just start with the whole meta narrative. You spent time in consulting, obviously startups, but give us the kind of 2-minute, 30,000-foot flyover.
Okay. I graduated college in 2000. So right when Web 1.0 imploded, right? So I always thought I was going to go into startups when I was in college, and the rug got pulled out from under me. So I was completely and totally lost. So I went into management consulting, and I did that for about 3 years. And it was an amazing experience. I learned a ton, but I hated it. It just wasn't my authentic self. And I made a promise I would never take a job for money again. And I've held to that. And so I keep putting myself through the ringer as a startup founder and refounder. Been doing it for over 20 years now. And I love it. And yeah, happy to walk through. I've done 1 0 to 1 startup from scratch, and then I've taken over two companies and done the, 1 to 100 million plus kind of journey, and the similarities and differences between those. And in between, I've done 2 stints at larger, more established startups. Hotwire, an ancient online travel platform that was really cool about 20 years ago, and then at Yelp just over 10 years ago.
So you're from California, you're from the Bay Area originally, and I'm so curious, before we talk about specific companies and startups, you left the Bay Area for college and decided to come back. But what is special about the Bay Area? How do you process being from the Bay? Did you want to move back to the Bay? Do you think the Bay is back? Add to the narrative. What do you think about building, living, growing a
Yeah,
family in the Bay Area?
I am long on the Bay. I'm a huge fan of the Bay. I think there's just something special here that I don't know why, I don't know how, but just hasn't been able to be like really replicated anywhere else. There's just an energy here. And we've had our ups and downs in the Bay. But I definitely think it's back. There's an energy in San Francisco right now I haven't seen in a long time. It's so much fun, so much creation, so much energy happening right now. It's pretty cool.
That's special. So talk about Liftopia. So this was your first startup. You've told this story that I've heard in different formats where it was kind of a decision between business school and doing Liftopia. So talk about kind of where it came from, where the idea came from, and what were some of those early days, months like?
Sure. Yeah. So okay. So after I did Accenture, my management consulting gig for about 3 years. And I think it was something like the day after I got promoted to consultant, I quit. I was like, just holding on for that. I really wanted to earn it. I felt like that's how I earned my stripes. It's like, I got to get out of here though.
Mhm.
Through sometimes, dumb luck, coincidence, whatever. I got an opportunity to my Accenture roommate's buddy was going to business school and he was running biz dev at Hotwire. So I got to go to Hotwire. That's how I got into Hotwire. Um, and Hotwire was amazing. It really was something special. You know, it was like 150, 160 people at the time in downtown San Francisco, which is 20 plus years ago, a bit of a rarity. Like still most of the action was Silicon Valley. And I loved it. I loved it. But what I realized is like, I want to do more. I'm starving for experience. I want to do more. So I thought I'd go to business school. I immediately went to procrastinating. And that's when I started Liftopia. So really what Liftopia was taking the online travel model and applying it to skiing, right? So advanced purchase and variable pricing and revenue management, yield management, all these principles that we were doing for hotels and rental cars and cruise lines and airlines. And taking it to ski, because that's the other thing in the Bay. We have amazing weather all year round, right? Like I can go surfing, I can go
Mm-hmm.
mountain biking, I can do whatever pretty much 12 months out of the year. And so being a very mediocre skier who, you know, maybe skied like 10, 15 days a year, it was kind of like, well, you know, if the snow sucks, like I don't really want to go do that drive and, you know, pay a fortune for, you know, half the mountain clothes. And I was like, why don't they change the prices, like depending on demand, you know? And then why don't they try and sell them far in advance, get a little revenue up front, lock it in, and insulate themselves from all these things that are outside of their control. And that was kind of the initial thesis behind Liftopia. And I started doing research, you know, like how big is this market? What's the current state of the state? And the more I dug in, and again, against the backdrop of this, I was like, if nothing else, I'll have a cool essay to write. You know, that was kind of like my backup plan.
Application fodder.
Yeah, you know, and also, and you know, it was just kind of like, yeah, no doubt, like this is tickling my fancy. This is an interesting, just I don't know, just a big question mark around an industry that I was kind of, you know, I participated in. And the more I got into it, the more I realized like there was actually something here. So here, fun fact, Jesse, did you know there are more lift tickets sold in the United States than tickets for the NFL, NHL, and NBA combined?
Oh, wow.
Right? And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this
Makes
is
sense.
a big market. This is
Mm-hmm.
sneaky big. And back
Mm-hmm.
then, I mean, it's funny, right? Because it's 2026 now, and we just assume everything's online. Back then, resorts weren't selling their lift tickets online. It was the
Just
same
all walk up,
price.
walk up to
It's
the
all
window,
locked,
print it on the big sign,
little
whatever this.
wicket and everything else.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
You know,
wickets.
and again, doing this research is like, whoa, you know, about 50% of ski areas revenue comes from on mountain ancillary spend. And like, I mean, I've seen this with hotels. I've seen this with cruise lines. Like sometimes, you know, when conditions aren't great, you just got to get bodies on the mountain. So again, all the more reason that like I was, you know, pretty convinced that this methodology would work. And so after about a year of kind of doing the research and kind of I wrote a 40-page business plan. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing.
And this was pre AI. You had to write every word of that
Oh my
bad boy.
God. I went to Barnes and Nobles and I bought books on how to write a business plan. And I sat and read and had a highlighter and I wrote a 40-page
Mm-hmm.
Word doc business plan. I mean, dude, I mean, let's talk about this for a second, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Decide this is a thing. I, you know, quit my job, do a friends and family round, raise like 160K so I can build a prototype. So I raised 160K so I can build a front end prototype and a back end like revenue management prototype with a dev shop in Chicago. I don't know how I found them. And then it was a piece of shit. Like, let's be clear. Like, but it was a functional prototype on both front end and back end. 160K. I could do that today in about an hour using just AI tools, and what would it cost me? $20.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a completely, totally different world back then. So I'm sure we'll touch on that.
Okay.
Uh,
So, real quick, I'm so curious just what fundraising was like. And even because safe notes were not a
These
thing.
aren't a
What was it
thing.
like? Yeah. Talk about raising 160K.
Like I said, the single best thing for this whole experience was how little I knew. I didn't know what I didn't know, which meant like I tend to be overly optimistic and like, yeah, cool. Is this all going to work out great? You know, it's kind of just my constitution, I guess, and for better or worse sometimes. And so it was straight up like hat in hand, like going to my aunt, uncle, and going to my neighbors and going to like my, childhood friends' parents that I knew. And I took, $2,000 checks and 5,000. And if I was really lucky, I'd get a $10,000 check. Um, and we sold equity. We priced the round. We priced the round. So you can imagine my cap table was the dumbest looking cap table you, as an investor, you've probably ever seen in your entire life. Like
Hmm.
complete total, like, what is this amateur hour nonsense? But again, I didn't know what I didn't know. And it helped us get it off the ground. And really, like, that's kind of all it's about, right? It's just like, can I keep making forward progress? Can I keep, fighting for another day? And that's what enabled us to get off the ground.
So, what was the valuation you priced that at?
$1 million.
Yeah, there you go.
$1 million.
160 on
That's
a
good, right?
million dollar pre, the
Sure.
glory days.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Talk about so when founders look back on early startups, early careers, oftentimes there will be a really specific skill set, specific learning, specific theme. When you look back on Liftopia, what was 2 to 3 things you feel like were biggest learnings to the positive or the biggest wins? What about things you learned to avoid?
So many lessons. That's honestly what I loved about that experience was there's nothing like doing. There's no better teacher than doing. And there's no better teacher than desperation too, right? Like if I didn't learn how to do something, it wouldn't get done. And so my learning curve, like just the slope of that curve, it was off the charts. And I loved that. I love it was hard. But that's where the real strength and growth comes is from doing these hard things and doing it without a safety net. So I love that. I learned so much. That was where I actually realized my when I left consulting, I was like, I got no transferable skills to point to. Like what did I learn? What did I learn? But what I actually realized was like what you learn as a consultant was how to parachute into unknown territory and just get
Mm,
acclimated and up to speed as quickly as humanly possible. And through repetition, you just do it over and
mhm,
over and over. And that's like doing a startup. It's just like, okay, like everything is from scratch. Everything is 0 to 1. I have no infrastructure. I have no momentum. I have nothing to build off of. There's no foundation underfoot. And so I have to build this all concurrently. And so I learned by doing. I came to appreciate the experience of learning by doing and the importance of that. Again, no better teacher. Um, I learned to really approach it with a level of humility because we can get tunnel vision, and sometimes it feels like the whole world's against you when you're doing a startup, right? And I think like there's going to be always this reflexive, defensive posture. I need to protect, and this thing that I'm nurturing. I'm like, you just don't understand yet. But at the same time, you have to have humility and you have to really hear feedback, especially from people you trust, or respect, in order to avoid hubris and maybe some of the traps that are obviously in front of you that you just don't know yet as a first time founder. That was some of the most impactful things I think is again like leaning on people who have been through this journey, surrounding myself with people who have done this before who are smarter than me that I could learn from was probably one of the best things that I did. And it takes time. It takes time to build it up. But I was able to get, for example, my first investor and board member was the former CEO of Expedia. And,
hmm,
I was a nobody at Hop. I was a nobody, but I just, I met him once, at Hop, and he was just this super nice guy. And so I sent him a cold email like, hey, you probably don't remember me, but I was that, schmucky 23-year-old kid who was running biz dev at Hotwire, and I'm doing this startup, and I love your advice. And so it's like this no sell. It's just like, I just want to talk to you. And
mm,
we established a, relationship and started talking more. And I say, I know, like he's giving me a check. He's sitting on my board. I suddenly get access to this guy. I mean, talk about a gift, right? Way better than any classroom. So I mean, dude, we could spend an hour talking about like all the lessons learned, but I think the biggest one that I probably learned in this I'm fast forwarding now towards the end of it is the two most important things by far for a startup are momentum and culture. And as a founder and as an exec, it's, if you don't nurture those, if you don't tend to those daily, if you don't like have line of sight, like eye on the ball constantly, that's the death knell when you lose either of those because it's so hard to regain it. And they're intertwined. They're intertwined, so you make some mistakes on the culture side and it can just torpedo momentum. That's what happened. We can talk about it or not, but um, I say that's probably the biggest lesson that I've carried with me through the rest of my career is the importance of culture and momentum. And then I guess the last thing I'll say about Liftopia, because it didn't work. It didn't work. It went out of business in 2020, 2021. I had a horrible breakup with my co-founder. We can talk about it or not talk about it. It doesn't matter. But the biggest thing that I realize is even when it doesn't work, no one can take away the experience that you gain from doing it. And that alone is the win, right? And so I would not have had the success that I had at AllTrails without that experience of Liftopia. And I talk about that with my kids all the time, that one of like the worst professional experiences that I've ever had is actually one of the best things that ever happened to me. And how weird of a thing that is to hold, like these, two sides of the
Hmm.
same coin. They're like
Hmm.
these two truths are both they're both true concurrently, right? This is the worst thing, and it was the best thing, and reconciling that. And it's a fascinating conversation to have with your kids. I think there's some really good lessons in that.
You reached out cold to this Expedia guy. And what's so amazing in my own journey too, Ron, where you have these moments where you just kind of go, hey, this is a 1 in 100, one in whatever shot that somebody's going to even respond to this. And guess what? I mean, there's how many quotes? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, et cetera, et cetera. But how do you build the practice around that, the resilience around? Is there any way to get good at being willing to shoot your shot?
I think I think some people have more of a natural inclination than others. There's probably a spectrum of it, I'm not saying I was super far on it, but I wasn't like zero on it. So I think that there's some natural spectrum, but I do think it's a muscle you need to nurture and develop over time. And so part of it is just as many at bats as you can. Just like the more rejection you get, the easier it is, right? And anyone who's listening here who's ever done fundraising will tell you it's the same thing. You have to get thick skin. You have to get used to rejection because it is the norm. More often than not, right? And so I think just like putting yourself out there and just reminding yourself again. I would do these visualizations like, what is the worst thing that can happen? Like the absolute worst is like, this person's going to email me and be like really angry that I had the audacity to reach out to them and dress me down in an email. And then what? I delete it. I never talk to this person again. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, how, how,
Yeah, the
how
floor
bad,
is not very low, actually.
right? How bad can it really be? And when you start
Hmm.
kind of doing that, it's like, okay, it won't be that. It might be somewhere on the spectrum, but there's also this like great side. And so why not? Why not?
I had a mentor. His name's Vance Brown. Shout out to Vance if he ends up listening to this. But I took him to lunch one time and I said, hey, would you be willing to mentor me? And oh, by the way, I bet you get asked this all the time. How many people have asked you to be their mentor recently? And he said, you and one other. And he had this big smile on his face. And he said, you'd be surprised how much people assume everybody's busy.
Yep.
Everybody's going to say no. Everybody will ignore those requests, whether it's a mentor or an investor or advice. And it was such a fascinating moment for me of, wow, everybody assumed he was so hot shot, so fancy that they didn't ask. You got to ask. And I know it's so cliche, but how many quotes you've heard about people who, once they've gone further in their career, they're sitting at tables full of people they thought would be so impressive. And in many ways, they might be. But the main thing is that the people sitting at those tables just did something. Instead of waiting to be invited, instead of waiting for the door to open for you, they just walked, knocked, pushed down the door, whatever. That's just like the only difference. Yes, yes, they're smart. Yeah, lots of people, you and I are around lots of people that are smart and talented, et cetera. But the main thing that separates them is that they we're people of agency, which
Yep.
is a fascinating concept as we get more in the world of AI, is that it's humans of agency
Well said.
that will create the world that we see.
I couldn't agree more.
Let's talk about culture. So, uh, lots of people think, oh, maybe culture is having a cool office space with ping pong and a beer fridge and cereal, kombucha on tap. I've heard lots of different definitions of culture. When you think back to Liftopia, what is your definition of culture? And then what did you learn from Liftopia about culture that you brought forward?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. You have like, you have core values and then you have culture, right? So core values are like your foundational pillars. What are we about? What are we not about? Like these are immutable. They're immutable. And then culture is kind of like this living, breathing thing on top of it that's shaped by it, that lives in the space maybe between them, that grows and evolves as you bring more people in, right? And it's just like DNA. Like you want diversity and you want diversity of experience, diversity of thought, and everything else. Like these are wonderful things, but it's still bounded by your core values, right? And so I think what people mistake culture for is like, yeah, the booch and the ping pong and whatever. I think that's an outdated trope on it, thankfully, because of the pandemic and something like,
Hmm.
everyone
Hmm.
and we should talk about how that impacted AllTrails, because I was like, it was fascinating how we're able to like poke through it specifically because of our culture and our mission. But at Liftopia, yeah, our culture was like we were like these, San Francisco based, like whatever, Silicon Valley people that, were infiltrating the ski industry, right? And so like really what that meant is we threw the best parties. We were a culture of throwing these insane, we had fog machines and we had like remote control flying sharks and lasers, like DJ. It was amazing because like we got to give back, like the whole thing, we were a supply constrained marketplace. And so it's like, all right, we got to make these ski areas think that, we're not just takers, we're givers, we're part of it. And, like we could have like the wonkiest pitch on data and revenue management, yield management, whatever. They didn't care. Right. But it's like, oh, these guys are cool. Oh, these guys are fun. Like that. Okay, cool. That'll be our currency, fine. Like I'll show up to our, I'm going to fly into this resort to try and get your inventory on Liftopia. And I'm going to walk up with cases of PBR because that's what okay. All right. I can do this. And then we'll go skiing after our meeting. All right. So, there was definitely like, that was like, I thought was the culture. And then there's, culture of like a building, of having fun, of like, breaking the mold, stuff like that. But there was this, a negative piece of culture that infiltrated too, which was, in hindsight, we had some amazing people. We had some amazing people, some really amazing talent that's gone on to do some really cool things. But in hindsight, I look back and I do feel like there was some indulgence of behavior that then, especially at like higher ranks, that at the time I justified through, they're exceptional ICs and, they do really great work. So I just
Hmm.
need to indulge them as if I'm a GM of a sports team with a superstar that might, not be the best in the locker room, but I'm winning some games. So like, it's okay. And what happened was I realized too late how cancerous that is, right? And what happens is like then, those people when they get empowered to start hiring, the chain underneath them gets contaminated too, like especially the higher up it goes. And it just became too hard for me to weed this out. And so instead of this being like a me place and like we're rallying around a mission and a comic, it became, some people became territorial. There would be sharp elbows. Some people, again, not on the whole, like for the most part, it was an amazing place, but there were enough where it ended up torpedoing the company. It was culture. I let go of culture. I indulged behaviors I shouldn't. And that is the most painful lesson because it's my fault. It's my fault. Right. Um, and I have to own that and live with it. But I wear my scar with pride, and I was able to carry that with me into AllTrails, which is like, okay, like one of the things that I need to ensure that I do as a leader It's really, really holding the line on who gets to work here, right? Who we hire, who we transition out, and it's just like, I don't know, trimming the tree, whatever, like the gardening. I suck at gardening, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's both, it's again, it's both who you allow in, but also like, when do you need to kind of cut that out? And, sometimes that means more than one person, right? Because again, if the branch gets contaminated, and I did that. I did that at AllTrails, and I think it was one of the biggest reasons why we were able to scale the way that we did, is because this relentless focus on culture beyond kombucha and ping pong and all that kind of stuff.
As you're now stepping into Acley, which is obviously bigger than when you started Liftopia, but what does culture mean when there's two people, three people, four people?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I haven't done the exercise yet of like making a culture deck. I did that at AllTrails when we were maybe like 25, 30 people. And I was like, okay, you know what? I got to stop assuming every new hire like really understands what we're about. I'm gonna it'll be a living, breathing doc, but I'm gonna have this as part of new employee onboarding. I'm gonna make a culture presentation for every new hire. And I did that for years at AllTrails. I never stopped doing it. It was one of the best things I think that we did. Because again, it was the unlock to everything that we did. So I haven't quite had the chance to do that at Acely yet, but I do talk about culture quite a bit. And so, for example, at Acely, we're playing in the AI native space, right? We're taking an AI native tooling approach to personalize an adaptive test prep for the SCT and ACT. And then we'll move on from there. But it's a really cool problem area. And again, the tooling today makes it just so much fun to play in. But for example, one of our cultural pillars is like, everyone here needs to be a builder. We're going to do this as an AI native company. So everyone here needs to be a builder. Everyone needs to be able to prototype. Everyone needs to be able to take an idea and like turn it into something that, again, we can then chew on, iterate on, put in front of users even, get feedback on, and then build it quickly, ship it quickly, right? Like it's just a whole new paradigm for product development and design and research and all of it. Like that's one of our cultural beliefs here. And if you're not here for it, cool, but like that's what it's going to mean to work at Acely. And so what I love, we do a monthly hackathon. That's part of our culture, right? Where we encourage everyone to play with all the new tools out there. I can't prescribe what tools to use. It's just the landscape's moving too quickly. There's too much out there. So we federate it and we just say, hey, here's the theme for this hackathon. Use whatever you want. And so people come, they present, and they also talk about which tools they used to did it, the pros and cons. So it's a great way to kind of cross-pollinate what's happening. Like that's part of our culture, right? A culture of learning, of playing, of trying to stay on top of the tooling, of really leaning on tools as a core part of our growth trajectory, because I think that's just the reality of today. Where again, everyone can be a full stack builder. And so on these demo days, I have my head of finance doing fully functional prototypes. I have my head of customer support doing fully functional prototypes, marketing. And I love it. Like, so that's an example of culture, right? A culture of builders where everyone is empowered and everyone needs to be self-sufficient. And then I think if we can pull that off, we can do so much with a really small footprint.
Okay, so zoom in on that real quick. How do you do these demo day hackathons? Is it like, hey, if one Friday morning a month,
Yeah,
nobody takes meetings and we hackathon and we sit in the same room? Or is it like, tell me the specifics about the logistics of that.
sure. And let me actually back up. So at All Trails, we had part of our culture was first Friday of every month was trail day. And so
First Friday of every month
every
was
month
trail
was
day.
trail day. So
Okay.
no meetings. We were primarily remote. Pre-pandemic was like 80% in the Bay and then remote. And post-pandemic just kept growing remote. But whatever. So we shut the office, but also just everyone get out, get outside, get on the trail, get the latest QA build if you want it. So use all
Love it.
trails, use competitors, don't use anything and just clear your head and think, connect with other people, so we're distributed, right? So like, hey, New England crew, Seattle crew, Austin crew, whatever, like just meet up. So that was a cornerstone of the All Trails culture, right? Dog food, what we make, all that. So when I was starting at ACES, like, what's the equivalent? What's the equivalent? I was, again, we're in the test prep phase. Like,
Everybody take the ACT every first Friday
I
of
know,
every
well,
month.
dude, that was our last hackathon. Was I actually took a 3-hour ACT exam,
Wow,
and
love it.
everyone in the company did that, and now we're all using Acely for the next 30 days to try and raise our score. So that was a little one off. But it was really like, what's the equivalent of Acely? Is like, can't do trail day. I love trail day. I would personally love, but like, it doesn't fit. It's not really authentic. Authenticity
Mhm.
is when you're dealing with culture, it has to be authentic. So it's like, well, what's Hastily about? Well, we're builders, we're builders. We're all going to be builders. So let's do something building related. So to your original question, what we do is the first Thursday of every month is hackathon day. So we'll a week in advance, we'll kind of say the theme, have a spreadsheet. People can partner with other people, sign up for whatever they want, but there's some guardrails. There's some guardrails.
Mhm.
We announce the theme. So Thursday, you're just heads down building. And then Friday morning is demo day. And we don't judge it or anything. Like, I'm not like sitting there like, you won hackathon. It's just everyone demos.
You're fired.
Yeah. All right. Wasn't good enough. Nope, not at all like that. Um,
It's a share out. It is a collaborative time to try
totally.
and learn and see what sticks.
Including both, what they built and why, but also how is every bit as important. So
Mm.
that's specifically the mechanics around it. So it's one Thursday and then maybe like 3 hours on Friday.
Very cool. Okay, before we leave Liftopia, what would be 2 questions you should tell every founder to ask a potential co-founder that they are currently dating, for lack of a better word? What should you ask to understand if you're on the same page?
Co-founder relationships are hard. They're really, really hard. And I'm sure as an investor, you've seen often what happens as companies grow and scale, because not everyone grows and scales with a business, right?
Mhm.
I'd say if you're dating a co-founder, first question you ask is, what's the why behind this? Why am I doing this? Right? Is it because I'm lonely and I don't want to do this alone because the weight of the world is too much? That's fair. That's very fair. But then like, well, what criteria or qualifications does this person bring? Um, I, I think that without getting too into the details, I think that the challenge that I had with my co-founders, we didn't have enough delineation between our skill sets, and so
Too much overlap?
there was too much overlap. Neither of us were
Mm.
technical, so it wasn't like, oh yeah, one was like the business guy and one was the builder. It wasn't like that. Neither of us were builders. Neither of us were technical. And so there was just a lot of ambiguity around roles, responsibilities, ownership, things like that. And when you have a lot of overlap, it can just create frustration or tension. So anyways, I would, so there's just kind of those questions, like, what's the why of this one? Um, I, just speaking candidly, I don't know of too many businesses that have had successful co-founder pairings all the way through, and so it's tough. That's not to say it can't be done compassionately and empathetically in a way where people feel proud of their work and what they built, right? Like, it doesn't have to be acrimonious. It doesn't have to be a negative thing, but odds are stacked. Odds are stacked
Would you
again.
say you're actually bearish about the co-founder approach?
I am.
Or
I am.
okay.
Unless it organically happens, and there's like you know, a, if it organically happens, it happens. And that's cool. People share an idea, people bring different energies to whatever, right? But the whole like co-founder dating thing, in my experience, is like, wait, you're just looking for like a head of engineering to help you, or you're an engineer, you're like, hey, you're just looking for like a business person to help you. And then, but in either scenario, like, really think through like that co-founder title is very weighty and very expensive. And if they are not in it with you from the absolute start, like the true, like, breathing life into it, like 0 to 0.1, right? Like, then have they earned that title of co-founder? Like, what exactly is a co-founder versus an early stage employee, right? A founding team member, things like that. Like, there's ways to get around it. I think people are too quick to throw out a co-founder title.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's also part of this, maybe it's an American culture thing where the notion of, running hand in hand across the finish line of the marathon feels like a cool part of the story. right? To have this tribe. But your point is maybe that's not a co-founder.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. Okay, we've barely touched on AllTrails yet, but before we do, you had this stop at Yelp.
Oh yeah.
Any big headlines that you took from that time?
All right. So I was at Yale 2014 to 2015. I was there like 12, 14 months. And back then Yale had some amazing talent. It really had some amazing talent. Right downtown San Francisco, beautiful building, cool place to work. Um, I was grateful for my time there, you know. We were this like big strategic initiative where they were trying to create an open table conveyor. So they bought a startup and they wanted to create a big open table conveyor. So they recruited me to come in and run growth. I was honored. Yelp was a publicly traded company. So like it was sharp and in all the best ways. Like I had to really, really like sharpen my edges here. You know, it's not like a VC startup with all due respect. You know, sometimes VC startups are like, hey, how you guys feeling? Everything good? Like, how can we help? It can be really nice. Sometimes it's not so nice, but like on the whole, it's like, hey, we need to, you know, we're dealing with first time founders. We got to pump them up. We got to help them out. Like,
Right.
right. Like there's no need for niceties.
There wasn't that at the time.
No, it was just, you know, it's just like, is this working or not? What's going on? What are we doing about this? Like, what's our hypothesis? What are we, you know, so it was just like, and it made me better. It made me better. Because I was self-taught in skiing and like, I am by no means like, should be teaching anyone, but like I could hang, you know? But a
Hmm.
lot of bad habits. I feel like startup boards can be like that quite often where again, like, all right, cool. Yeah, we're doing it. But there's just something different about dealing with publicly traded board, private equity boards, things like that, where you gotta get sharp and strong and thick skin quickly. Cause they won't suffer any bullshit. So anyways, I loved that part. That was great. I really love that. But I miss startups. I like the speed. Um, I like, yeah, just like really letting it rip. And, you know, that wasn't the culture there. And that was fine, but I missed being in the game. I wanted to get back into something smaller and higher growth and higher opportunity.
Yeah, good segue. AllTrails. How big was the team when you joined? And kind of talk about some of the big milestones you hit on your journey there, because you
Yeah. So
obviously you had an incredible journey at
that was
AllTrails.
a hell of a run. I will, you know, I'm old and grayer, and looking back on my career, like that one was a good one. Um, so I knew the founder of AllTrails from Liftopia because outdoor tech, as you know, outdoor tech is very small. We all kind of know
Hmm.
each other, and so I was kind of getting a little itchy at Yale. Like I was like, all right, I gotta figure something out. And I knew I didn't like 0 to 1. I was like, I don't ever need to do that again. Coolest thing I never need to do again. Um, but that then shrinks the field of opportunity. So especially if you want to be an exec. So anyways, the founder of AllTrails hit me up. He got an opportunity to go. His buddy started Postmates, and so he wanted to go do that. Um, and so he wanted to find someone to give the keys to. And so AllTrails in 2015, though, you got to understand, it was 6 people doing about half a mil in ARR. So teeny tiny,
Seed.
not
Today's
teeny.
today's seed is kind of what we'd call that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it had product channel fit. So basically, we met for coffee in San Francisco, and the pitch was he basically opened up Google Analytics and he's just like, look. It was like, holy shit. There was so much traffic. He had built this amazing SEO machine. There was so much traffic just organically come. 2015 was a magical time for organic growth.
Hmm.
Uh, Rest in peace. That era is not coming back. But anyways, I was like, I could do so much with that. I've never had that problem to solve, which is like, yeah, there's all this traffic. How do you monetize it? It's like, I can do that. So I couldn't say no. I couldn't say no. And the handshake agreement was to grow it and sell it. So it was eyes wide open, right? Like, you know, let's see what you can do. We already had some offers. Like, let's just, you know, maybe it's a quick flip, quick turnaround. And so I started in August 2015.
And when did you leave?
I left in January 2025. So just
Almost 10 for it.
about 10
Yeah.
years. And so a lot happened in that 10 years. A lot happened. So because the handshake agreement was to grow and sell it. So because the mandate, the why it came out was to grow and sell it, was like, all right, we're not going to raise money, right? Like, why muddy the waters right now? Um, let's just see if we can get to profitability and control our own destiny and not dilute anyone. It was, again, as you know, this was like that period up until 2021 was like the greatest time in human history to go raise capital. And we're like, nah, we're not going to do it. Instead, like suckers, we're just going to focus on profitability. And it took 2 years of grinding, and it was a grind. It's always a grind. Dude, first 4 years of Liftopia was me and my co-founder working out of my kitchen table in my shitty, tiny San Francisco apartment, right? Like, I ate canned soup every day for 2 years straight. 2 years straight, I ate canned soup literally every single day, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the founder grind. I think, founders get glamorized quite a bit, but they don't talk enough about the grind that it takes to get there, the hardships, because it is brutal. And those first 2 years at AllTrails were rough. They were really, really rough. It was just like long nights and working weekends and just like, we're so small. And I had to self-fund it. Like we didn't have much. And so, it was really like, okay, we're just going to focus on one part of the funnel every quarter, so this quarter we're going to focus on conversion rate. This quarter we're going to focus on reg rate here. This quarter we're going to focus on bounce rate here. We're going to focus on engagement, and just you're triaging. You're just on your back foot. Because again, it's not 0 to 1. So I'm just trying to unlock growth. I got to put out these million fires all around me and some sort of semblance of like order of operations. And again, like what's going to unspring growth and like get a little more wind in our sails. So it's 2 years of that, but we got there. We got there, right? Just like relentless funnel optimization and things like that. And a whole lot of like, we're not going to do this right now. Like I need to get really, really comfortable knowing that this area of the product sucks and I don't like it. I'm not proud of it, but I don't have the luxury of focusing on that right now. And if I want to earn that right, I talk a lot about earning the right to do something. Same with Acley. It's like we got to earn the right to do the next wave of growth. But right now, we have to be relentlessly focused on this. Right. And so there's a lot of that, a lot of what we're not going to do and why. After 2 years, we got to profitability. And then the next year, one of the big tech companies wanted to buy us. And it's like, okay, all right, universe, like that's the sign. So we're going to run a process, do the whole iBank thing. I really wanted to do it right. And I was a little out of my depth. I didn't want to get taken advantage of, especially you're dealing with big tech, like their core dev team is, they're sharks. They're good. And so it's like, I need help. I'm willing to partner up with the bank here to do it. And we did, we ran a whole process, but anyways, as we were going through it, what became more and more clear to me is I don't want this journey to end. I really, really love our mission. I think we're really just like on the cusp of making this thing something like
Yeah.
really incredible. Like I don't want to pull the ripcord was the thing that just kept popping. I don't want to pull the ripcord yet. And so we changed course. And so rather than sell to a strategic, we went and tried to find a financial partner who could clear the cap table and like we could sell the company. But believed in the next chapter even more than this one that we're currently like closing. And we found it. We found a growth equity firm, and they we're a 12-person company doing 10 million ARR, and they bought us. We cleared out the cap table. They put me in as the CEO, and they're like, let it rip, let's see what you can do. And that's where it got really fun. And that's where I grew it. It was a product led growth thesis. Right. And so the agreement I basically had with them was like, look, anything over the profitability line, let me reinvest however I want. Right. We're not going to worry about EBITDA margin. Like we're going to operate at break even, but like anything above it, let me just reinvest it to fuel growth. And the big, it's either marketing or product. But again, I think I'm a believe product led growth is often much more durable, much more defensible, bigger moats. As I kept focusing on heads. So the question I'd always ask is like, what is the next highest leverage hire that I can bring in? Like, what is the that skill set we don't currently have, or that unlock, or sometimes someone like lower that can unspring me or unspring someone else to do the things that only that person can do. Right. And so it's just like each net new head, what can they unspring? What can they unlock? And that it was like, I think the story of AllTrails growth has to be told against the story of our headcount growth, where 2019, we started the year with 15 people. So we doubled in 2019 from 15 to 30. In 2020, started the pandemic, we had 30 people. We basically doubled 30 to 60 in 2020. We went from 60 to 130, 140 in 2021, and then
Wow.
140 to 200 by 2022, right? So over these 4 years, we went basically from 15 to 220 people. Um, and it was also, we could do more faster. That was all that I cared about, was doing more faster, more capacity, more throughput, better balance, short-term initiatives with medium and long-term bets, and we just created this growth machine. And so, you cross all these milestones, right? You cross 1 million in ARR, you cross 10 million ARR, you cross 100 million in ARR. You know, we won App of the Year in 2023. That was really
Hmm.
fucking cool. That was in 2017, Calm won it, and I was like, okay, I want that. And it was just like, I want that. Like, we are going to win that, and I was relentless about it. It was our Pulitzer Prize. In software development, there's not a lot of awards or accolades out there. It's like, we are gonna earn the right to win that. And again, like, I thought we were gonna get it in 2020. That was a big breakout year. There wasn't a lot to do, so everyone was hiking, which was great. We seized that opportunity. I thought, man, 2020 is our year, and we didn't get it. I was like, ooh, okay, well, we're gonna work even harder. We're gonna go get that. Anyways, it's till 2023. It was so rad. It really was so rad. Anyway,
Yeah.
so, it was a great journey. It was like an all-time great one. I'm so proud of what we built. Global community, 100 million registered users all over the globe. Yeah, it was awesome, but it was all product-led growth and all unlocked via people.
Culture. I mean, you're back to the culture thing. Um,
Uh,
what were some of the bad hires you made and what
mhm.
you learned from those?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's people that you just whiff on. It happens. You can try and like fortify your interview processes, and get the job specs and requirements and all that like really dialed in, and you think you're asking the right question, but you don't always get it right. You don't always get it right. It happens. So I think that in that instance, the key thing is like, okay, we need to intervene, and we need to course correct, and we need to show them what excellent looks like, and give them all of the coaching, all of the feedback possible to get there. And it's so great. There's no residuals, like clean, like, let's go. We're moving forward. Um, but you need to time box it. And so, like, if they can't get there at a certain point, your culture is also only good as what you're going to tolerate. You know, and that's the thing. Like, I believe in bar raisers. I believe, I wanted to create a culture of winning championships. So I talk about that all the time. Like, we're not a family. We're not a family. I have 3 kids. They do stupid shit all the time, and I love them unconditionally. Right? Like, that's not work. But we are a team, and we're here to win championships every single year. Nothing short of that. Like, when the work-life balance, yes. But the second we step on the court, it's excellence. It's like, we are here to win. We are going to be the best company in consumer tech, period. Right. And it created a magnetism. And so the thing that happens is, if you overindulge people that, are maybe like C players, right? Your good ones start getting frustrated. Like, why am I having to cover for this person? Right. So again, you do it in a way that's like compassionate and empathetic, and rooted in coaching, and rooted in feedback. We did so much with performance. Straight up, one of the best hires I did in 2020 was bringing in this world-class VP of people ops, of HR, and help me build this infrastructure of reviews, of like, we had this whole matrix of basically like every role and every level. And so we really wanted to be transparent, so that we could be, again, compassionate and empathetic about what great looks like for every role. And so, like, you are doing great, but you'll see here, the expectations for a director are here. And then this is really operating like a manager. And so here's what we need to do to get there. We're going to spend the next 6 months, next performance review cycle, working there. And again, ideally, you make it through, great. But if not, we'll transition them out. We transition them out, right? So there's just I spent more of my time with my VP of people than probably any other function over like several years. Um,
Just building the structure and the cadence and the expectations and the communication and
and really
all
getting
of it.
granular about, again, like who deserves to be here, myself included. I would do this. I'm gonna jump ahead of something here, right? So as a CEO, as a leader, I had often heard like you're firing and you're rehiring yourself constantly. I never really knew what that meant. What kind of platitude is that? Whatever, dude. Um, but then I started going through these hyper growth periods, and again, AllTrails sold to private equity in 2018, and so we all know the private equity playbook. And so what I would constantly ask myself is, okay, if I were to get fired and they're rehiring for my position, like what is the profile? What is the skill set? Where is like the area of focus? And I would make sure that I just try and stay ahead of the curve, and I would like proactively keep growing into the role that the company at that stage required. Right. So it's this constant reinvention of myself. Where am I spending my time? Where am I spending my energy? As you hire really great people, you have to give them space. You have to give them agency. You have to give them, let them work their craft. And so something like, all right, I'm spending less time in design reviews. I'm spending less time, workshopping product. I'm spending less time, and it's okay, and that means like, so where do I spend my time? Right. So there's so much of that, but also it's the same thing with like the people underneath too. And this is the worst part about being a CEO, but it's probably the most important thing for your listeners to understand it. If, as you're going through a hyper-growth company, the question that you need to ask of your employees constantly, if I were to reopen this role today, would I rehire this person or not? And it's such a hard question to ask. And it's so tough. There's nothing worse. And, the CEO, no one's going to feel bad for me. I'm sitting here, oh, that guy's just complaining. I'm not expecting any sympathy, but I am trying to make it really, really transparent. Again, the people who are early on this journey are kind of living it now as a CEO, as a founder, how tough it is. Because there are going to be times where, one of your earliest friends in the old days, when you're 4, 5, 6 people working in a room together, grinding, and suddenly, you're a 100-person company, 150-person company, a 200-person company. And they're your head of X, your VP of X, your CXO. And it's like, if I were to rehire for this role today, would I hire this person or not? And I
They
think,
wouldn't win the slot.
you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it's such a
Yeah.
tough, it's such a shitty thing, but it's like one of the most important things that we do, because again, we can have the best strategy in the world, but it's only as good as the people that are there to execute against it. And so that's why I really think ultimately at the end of the day, the role of the CEO is to be this like this vanguard of culture, right? And then who gets to work here with us, and holding that line, because no one else is going to do it. No one else is going to do it.
Okay, so you've been through this whole journey. You got acquired by private equity. You had a 10-year run at AllTrails. What is the type of advice you give to founders now that primarily comes out of the entire AllTrails journey?
I, it so often comes down to culture and people, and just like this notion of bar raisers. I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. Someone told me ages ago, A people hire A people and B people hire C people. And that one really stuck with me. That one really, really stuck with me. A people have no qualms hiring someone smarter than them, hungrier than that. Again, so as long as you have the cultural guardrails in place, maybe humility, whatever it is, but like, I want to be the dumbest person in the room. It's not like that's a high bar, but like I want to be the dumbest person in the room every single time, right? Like that's my goal. I want to be inspired. I want to like hear people saying things I haven't thought of. You know what I mean? Like that to me is a win. Um, but you do have this class of people that feel threatened, and so they'll hire people that are non-threatening, and that's just road to ruin, right? So I love bar raisers. I think you have to constantly be thinking about raising the bar. If we have a finite number of seats, like again, like, is this the team that's going to win me a championship? I think operating with a sense of urgency is really key. I'm surprised how frequently I run into this where people are just tootling around, and it's cool. Like I get it. I get it. It's fun to build. It's fun to be with your friends. It's fun, I get it. But like, all of these startup, they have shelf lives. There's a half-life to, there's a decay rate, there's these moments of time to go seize it. And if you don't take it seriously, if you don't like go out and play to win, someone else is going to do it. and choke off your oxygen where like you don't get to play around anymore. Like there's nothing viable there, right? And so it's like if you want to survive, you have to operate with a sense of urgency. That was one of the key tenets of all. I took this so seriously. I like I'm not a super competitive person, but when it comes to startups, I do believe it's a zero sum game. It really is. Like it's such a competitive space and you're dealing with some of the best and brightest and hungriest, and everyone sees like what the mountaintop can look like and you're fighting to get up that mountainside first or second. Um, and so, you know, you got to be in it to win it. Otherwise, someone hungrier, more aggressive is going to take it from you. So
Yeah,
those
and
are
at the
some lessons learned.
yeah, that's good. And at the earliest stages, sometimes we can on our team, I think, index on, well, you could run out of money, which is true. Runway is certainly very, very, very real.
Yeah.
But there's a different competitor waiting in the wings, which is actual competitors who they don't care how hard you work. They're wanting to win, maybe even more than you.
I know. And I say this a lot. I do believe too, momentum begets momentum. And so like creating a culture of winning means like you got to get points on the board, even if you're starting from so far behind. AllTrails started so far behind a lot of our competitors. Again, like it was not a guaranteed success by any stretch. But it's just like we're just gonna keep like building this incremental momentum machine. You can use the like wind in a sail visualization too. It's just like I just needed more in there. And eventually you transition to sail for a jetpack and rocket boosters and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But like it really is just like building off of that momentum. That's why it's like culture and momentum, like these two are intertwined. They are fully intertwined. You cannot unlock one without the other. Um, and again, as a leader, it's your job to focus on the two of them. That's probably my biggest takeaway from Ultra. I think that's how we're able to do what we did.
What advice do you have for an investor like me?
Yeah, I don't know how you work your magic and do what you do. I will say the biggest thing I'd say today after playing in this AI native space for the last 8, 9 months, whatever with Acely, um, like there's never been a more fun time in the world to build, an easier time in the world to build. But at the flip side of that same coin is you know, the defensibility around product has completely eroded, right? So it's like you build something like anyone can go and copy it really quick. So I think a lot about defensibility and about moats and like what are the like durable like protections we can put around ourselves when again product differentiation gets reduced to basically zero now. And so brand equity, trust, community. You hear a lot about craft. I think craft is a funny one. Or like taste, we hear that thrown around.
Right,
I think
right.
really, I've been thinking about that one a lot lately. I think really it's just a proxy for humanity shining through,
Hmm.
like show me that this is real, that it's not just another like AI generated template and, like it's just not another one of these like 0 to 1 AI slop platforms out there. Like show me that there are humans that are thinking through emotions and connections and things like that. Like that's how I interpret taste today. Um, so I don't know. It's a fascinating time for sure, and I don't know what is going to be like enduring and durable, but there's so much opportunity to reframe like stodgy old industries, and that's what we're doing, right? It's like across every dimension, there's opportunity for change and transformation. Um, who's going to win? I have no clue. But I think those same core principles we've been talking about are what's going to ultimately, I don't think those change. I think those are immutable.
So, one last question. Tell us about Acely a little bit, specifically for the next 12, 24 months. What are you excited about? Where do you see the team going? What are some of the things you're prioritizing? Cast some vision for us
Sure.
for Acely.
Yeah. Let me, if I can, I'll even like, I'll step back a little bit. So after all shows, I took a sabbatical. I took several months off and it was wonderful. It was a gift. And I was kind of popping my head back up, thinking through, what do I want to do? I don't want to 0 to 1 it right now. But I want to be back in the arena. I want to do an AI native company, but it's got to be mission driven. It's got to be, that's
Hmm.
non-negotiable.
Hmm.
And it's really hard with a lot of AI native, we're all seeing it, like there's stuff being unleashed on the world. That's like, wait, I don't know if this is good for my kids. I don't know that I want them to use it. What kind of world are we gonna, have them inherit? Like I think about that all the time.
Hmm.
So it was really hard finding that mission driven AI native one, but I did. Again, like I said earlier, I believe the universe, presents opportunities and it's us to recognize them. I was talking to this VC in San Francisco, and I connected with them a few, I don't know, 2 months prior, planted some seeds about I'm out, I'm in the market, I'm looking for something cool. Here's the criteria. Anyways, they're like, I think we might have something for you. It's like, whoa, okay, what you got? They're like, what's in the ed tech space? Like, I don't know shit about ed tech, but okay, all right, I'm listening. And they're like, yeah, it's this like, AI enabled, adaptive, personalized SAT prep company called Acely. I was like, you're not, you're Acely. You're not going to believe this, but my daughter has actually been using this for the last year. Loved it. And it raised her score. At that time, over 100 points. Now it's over 140 points. But it was one of those things was like, okay, this product's in my home. I love it. I respect it. I love it. I've seen it firsthand. I believe in it. And so now it's kind of like two chapters. Got to earn the right to unlock the second chapter, right? Got to earn that right. But the first chapter is like optimizing the foundation for what we're doing today. So for example, in October of last year, we launched an ACT equivalent to our SAT test platform, right?
Hmm.
Because we needed to make it first class citizen, and now so between the two of those, like now it's just optimizing our go to market function, onboarding, engagement. We're spending so much time on first 7-day engagement and creating these healthy habits and what kind of like loops can we create? What can we do with our data exhaust and how can we better feed and inform the product? And again, like durability and moats and defensibility. So that's going to be the next like 12 to 24 months. And then I think if we can unlock that, then we are in the right to do the next chapter, which is either, replicate this for all these other, you know, graduate school admissions and professional admission, or we do the LTV play and we go really, really deeper on this high school to college journey for families. And I think they're both are just so fascinating and fun to think about. But again, I can't lose sight of A to B, B to C, C to D. I can't look at A to Z.
Excited to follow along, especially as I have a 14-year-old at home myself, and the oldest is 14. So we'll be joining the standardized test parade here soon as she goes into high school and beyond. So we will have Acely in our home as well.
Love it.
Ron, thank you for coming. Every time we talk, I am so encouraged and reminded by how much you're willing to share about your journey, the openness with which you do that. And I know our founders and listeners are grateful. So thank you for coming today.
My pleasure. This was fun. Thanks for having me.
See you soon.
All right. See ya.